Today we're going to be talking about optimizing your legal function in 2026. There is a lot of hype about AI, a lot of hype about legal generally, and I just want to demystify what it actually means to have an optimized legal team today. So before I begin, a few words about us. We are Simple Docs. We are a legal contract automation company, and we work with thousands of legal teams to help them optimize the way that they work with regard to their contracts in particular, but also in some instances across the broader legal function. So we have a lot of experience and we know what works and what does not. Uh, Before I begin and I sort of go into the crux of this webinar today, I just want to say that this is meant to be an interactive webinar. So if you have questions as I go along, or if you have commentary that you want to share, please do. And what we often see is that we start conversations in the chat, and that's great. We love it when that happens. So please feel free to engage with other people who are in the audience. We have around 200 people here today, so there's a lot of colleagues in the same room. So do take advantage of that. Okay, so there's a lot of hype, as I said. We're seeing lots of people adopting tools, adopting new ways of working. But to be honest, we do have a bit of a hype problem and an execution gap. So just because you've bought a tool, and I am a software vendor, so maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but I will. Just by buying a tool doesn't mean you're going to scale your legal team. Just because you're using AI, because you're having pressure from the business to do that, or because you've seen some really cool stuff on LinkedIn, doesn't mean that AI will become your operating model. AI won't solve problems of lack of clarity or strategy. And just because you're faster in doing certain things doesn't mean that that will give you quality by default. The world that we live in now is so different to where we were literally last year. And we need to be really careful about how we proceed with deliberation in this new world because the opportunities are enormous. And legal is scaling whether we like it or not. So it's not an option, it's going to happen. This will happen because business velocity is increasing. I don't know if you use AI in your day-to-day already, but I do a lot. And I don't know how I would do my job at the scale that I do my job without AI. I am fully reliant on AI now. And I think lots of people are saying that and lots of people are seeing that. And if you're in a business and say you're the CEO and you are doing the same thing, you're relying on AI every day and you're seeing the velocity it can give you, you're going to start demanding that from the rest of the business. And if the CFO is seeing savings because of AI, the CFO is going to start demanding different ways of working so that they can see savings in other areas. And so there will be pressure from the business. There's pressure from the market more broadly. Your counterparties are going to demand a faster, more streamlined experience. And legal demand is growing. It's not shrinking. So just because AI's here and because people are automating the way that they manage contracts or other part of the legal process does not mean that legal demand is going down. And in fact, there was a study recently that showed that law firm fees were going up and also their revenue was increasing. So even though we may have expected AI to reduce that slightly, it's not doing that. Headcount is not scaling linearly either. So legal demand is going up. But, and this is not new, this has always been the case, just because the business is growing doesn't mean that legal is going to get budget to increase their headcount. That never happens in any business because at the end of the day, we're not revenue generating teams. And so we don't always get the budget to increase the headcount. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that that's the way it is. And AI is already inside workflow. So legal's going to scale. But the only question is whether that scale is going to be intentional. And the person that decides that is you. Are you going to make the decisions in terms of the strategy that you are following with regard to the way that you design your legal team, the way that you design the way you operate, with a view to really be intentional about where you're going? Because if you don't scale deliberately, if you don't realize now that the world is rapidly changing, that businesses need you to work differently, need you to deliver faster outcomes, better outcomes, and different outcomes, what will happen is that you're going to scale, but the legal work product is going to become inconsistent. There'll be risk tolerance drift because people in the business will take it into their own hands. I've seen this time and time again. Oh, GPT drafted this NDA for me. Can I send it out? No, please do not send out that NDA. But people take it into their own hands because people without expertise now think that they have a companion, GPT or Gemini or Claude, who that can do what someone with a legal background can do. So decisions also will get relitigated. People are going to start second guessing why we did this. There won't be any clear audit trails as to how you've structured the way that you work. And then legal either becomes a bottleneck or it becomes a rubber stamp. And that's not really conducive with legal becoming a business enabler. So adding more stuff to the mix doesn't fix your problems, but the reality of things is that legal, particularly in-house legal, was never designed to scale. Lawyers have been trained for their expert judgment. They've been rewarded for their expert judgment. Back in the day, I'm talking back 20 years ago, before being in-house was fully mainstream, volumes weren't high. We weren't expected to review hundreds of contracts in some instances. We were doing smaller projects, smaller pieces of work that required a lot of attention. The risk was high. And so we were expected to take a long time over things, but our role has shifted. And also we had clear ownership, the lawyer's responsible. Whereas now we're bleeding into different parts of the business. Now we're part of the product team. Now we're part of the marketing team. So it wasn't so embedded previously. And of course, there were slow feedback loops because that was expected of legal. But 2026 legal requires a different operating logic. And the first thing that we need to do is see ourselves for what we need to be. We are brought into an in-house environment thinking that we need to be a legal advisor, a risk checker, and in some instances, a support function. But in order for us to scale, the first thing that we need to do is recalibrate that identity that we carry with us, either from private practice or law school, or being under the management of a more old school in-house lawyer. What we need now to deliver to our businesses is a capacity of a business enabler. What that means is that we cannot block stuff for the sake of blocking it. And I'm not saying that you're doing that. I know that most in-house lawyers want to be this and they want to do this, but there's often a conflict. And I still suffer with this sometimes. There's a conflict of, but I'm here to give you my expertise. I'm here to be a legal advisor. I need to advise you of all the risks, and I need to be really loud about those risks so that you know what decisions you're making. But actually, what we're often doing is blocking the business without the risk being proportionate to the business impact. And so being really clear about what those risks are that the business is happy to take, because ultimately that's their decision, is exactly what legal needs to do in order to build a system within the business that embeds legal by design. And if anyone's done any privacy law, you'll know the GDPR requirement of privacy by design. And I really get that. And this is kind of the message that I'm trying to deliver here. Where we're going in the future is not legal, siloed, send me everything that's remotely legal and I will check it and then give it back to you. What the business is going to start to expect is that legal embeds its DNA into a broader system so that the business can make decisions and move fast without unnecessarily increasing the risk appetite, but also knowing and being confident that it's making decisions and moving within parameters that are tolerable from a risk aspect. And that's how you become a force multiplier for the organization. I'm kind of saying we need to get out of the way without making it dangerous for the business. So how do we do that? We cannot scale as an advisor. Advisory models do not scale with demand. They centralize judgment and they create bottlenecks. But enabling models distribute decision making. They allow a salesperson to make a decision that would otherwise sit with you, because that salesperson has the tools, the guidelines, the playbooks, and the escalation routes to do the thing that you have historically done. And lots of organizations already do this safely. So this is the kind of approach that we need to start taking. We need to start thinking about how we're going to encode our judgment and how we're going to move at business speed rather than legal speed. But before legal can optimize how it works, it has to redefine what it is. I cannot emphasize this enough. We can't be reactive advisors. We cannot optimize in isolation by sitting in silos. And we cannot design ourselves without the right business context, which is why we need to build our relationships and understand where the business is going. So the first shift is in the identity, going from legal as a downstream reviewer to legal as a business enabler and a design partner. And this is exciting, right? Because I don't know about you, but when I was in house, I did not want to just be there reviewing endless contracts all day long. The stuff that I really loved was when was being brought into strategy, into understanding where the business was going, what risks it was seeing, where a big supplier was causing a risk that I needed to advise on because I understood the contract, but I also understood the business context. So this is the stuff that is fun. Often lawyers will leave private practice or, I don't know, other organizations to go into their roles because they want to be part of a business and they want to be commercial and they have this legal brain that fits this way of working, this business environment. So it's exciting. And enabling starts with alignment. So if you think of yourselves in the middle, you've got all these other departments around you. How do you align with these guys? And how do you figure out what it is that they're doing and where it is that they are going? So here's the structure that I use to anchor that conversation in lawyers' minds. This is how you would set your legal framework up for scale. Now, I appreciate that this is a simplified framework, and this is going to be much more complicated at every layer. But if you don't need to address all of this immediately, this is just something that is good for you to think about in this way because it gives you structure. So the first question is, where is the business going, right? And from there, you can set out what the business objectives are. Now, this happens by you having conversations with the right people at management level, at leadership level, to understand where it is that the business is going. And then where should legal be going to support that is the second question. So how are you going to enable the business to do the things that it's going to do? You might, in your mind, have this project that you want to undertake, and it's a project that you think is really urgent, but if it doesn't align with business objectives, if it's not something that is creating risk to the extent that the business might be hindered from reaching its objectives, or if it's not a gap that the business doesn't need to fill in order to reach its objectives, then you may need to reprioritize that. So this is often something that we do as lawyers. We feel an urgency and we feel a risk, or we feel that there's a gap, and we're usually action oriented, so we want to go and do it. But it's important to make sure that the things that we're doing align with where the business is going. So firstly, you can justify what you're doing. You can justify why you need the spend. I need the spend, CFO, because you said that you want to do this. You said you want to grow. You said you want to grow by 100%. Well, how is my contract function going to support that? Who's going to review those procurement contracts or those negotiate those partner agreements? I need additional resource in order to deliver that objective for you. So this is how you start having those conversations. And if you really understand the business objectives, then every conversation that you have where you're asking for stuff becomes easier. And that also will allow you to craft a legal mission and vision. And often as legal teams, we don't do that. We think we're there to support the business and to react to things that are happening. However, it's important to take the time to write down what our mission is for the legal team, how that aligns with the overall business vision and mission, and then set out where you'd like to see, write out where you'd like to see your legal team next year. So in January 2027, where are you going to be? And what about in January 2030? Where are you going to be then? It's nice to direct people towards a broader vision, towards something bigger. And then the next thing is, okay, so what should legal actually be doing to support that mission? And then that goes into tasks. What are the things that you need to be doing? But more importantly, perhaps, is what are the things that you should not be doing? Because as we know, legal is one of the most under-resourced teams in any organization. So you need to ruthlessly prioritize what you do and what you don't do. And the only way to do that is to have an operating model. Now, before we get into the operating model, which is the 5+1 framework that I'm going to be talking to you about today, the way to understand what tasks you are actually doing is to do something that your lawyers are going to hate. You're going to do it for 2 weeks. You're going to ask them to please cooperate and to not be triggered by the PTSD that they have from when they were in private practice, where they measured their time in 6-minute increments. But what you really need to do is figure out what your team's doing now. I did this exercise for a fintech a few years back, and I found that the team was spending, I'm not joking, 50% of their time on Slack, responding to messages from the business. 50%. That's enormous and outrageous. So, but you don't know that that's happening because people aren't, they're just reacting to stuff. You want to be helpful. You want to be supportive. You don't want to be a blocker. You don't want people to say that you're slow. So you react, but actually that's just not conducive to a strategic outcome. So it's important to understand what your team is doing and whether those tasks should be done at all. And I'm going to give you another visual in a minute to help with that. Once you know what tasks you should be doing, what tasks you're doing, the next thing is how should legal be operating to support that? So just to simplify this, it's number one, where is the business going? That's your North Star. Secondly, where should legal be going to support that? Then what should legal be doing to support that? And then how should legal be operating to support that? And it all flows back up to your business objectives. The 5+1 framework. So the 5+1 framework is effectively a framework for how you might set up your legal function from an operations perspective. These are the 5 pillars that if you nail, you are in a better position than 99% of legal teams out there. You don't need to do all of this at once. You probably won't be able to do all of this at once. This is just for you to have in your head, again, a framework, because that always helps us work more effectively and towards a broader goal. So the first is legal resourcing, what work belongs in legal and what doesn't. Then we have legal intake. How do you take your demand? Is it by the water cooler? Is it on Slack? Is it email? Do you have a legal front door? Then it's your contract management. This is broad, and there are some incredible tools out there that can support with this. Then we have knowledge management, which is something that I think is just one of the biggest wastes in legal. Our product is knowledge, and yet we're not great at saving it and storing it and reusing it. And then we have data and reporting. So how legal learns and improves through data. And then the +1 is effective change management. And I'm going to talk about all of these in detail in a moment. But the +1 is effective change management because you can create the best legal ops department and the best legal strategy. And if you can't roll it out effectively to your legal team and the rest of the business, you've done nothing. So this is really important. And I call it +1 because it goes across all of these and it spans the breadth of anything that you're deciding to do this year or whenever. Okay, legal resourcing. I must give credit to this to Radiant Law, who published this years ago. I think it was 2018. It wasn't this exact language within each quadrant, but it was just a good way of thinking about where you would allocate each type of work. Now, I've amended this to take into account the fact that we now have AI, which is an incredible resource that we can use to really scale the way we work. But if you think about it, if you have high volume, low risk work, right, like routine contracts, you should either use AI for that and delegate most of the work to an AI tool, which is, of course, there's always a human in the loop, but it's heavily augmented by AI, or you outsource it entirely. Anything that's low volume and low risk, that's the sort of work that you can insource to the business. Insource means you get someone else in the business to do it, but you keep it within your organization. For example, data subject access requests. This is something that is best placed with your customer success team, if you're a consumer-facing business in particular, because you're going to be getting hundreds of these, and you can give a really good playbook. And again, you can give some AI tools to your CX team so that they can deal with DSARs and you're also giving them clear escalation paths so that when something gets to a point where it's too risky for the CX team to manage, it gets escalated to privacy, to legal, to whoever's responsible for this part of the business. Same with marketing queries. Again, when I was working in-house, I had so many queries from our marketing team. Can I use this in an email? Can I use this language? Can I use this banner? Do I need a consent for this cookie banner? So all of these questions, if you just start to train champions within the team, for example, you can insource that function to another team. Anything that's low volume, high risk, my view is that you should use a law firm, because if you don't do it very often, you're probably not going to have the expertise. And so you're going to have to upskill. That takes a lot of time. That time is sunken because you're not going to be reusing the knowledge. Yes, it might be fun to do a bit of litigation when you're in-house, but it's taking up a lot of time for you to upskill, and you're also taking on undue risk. And if you're not experienced in that space, you should probably give it to a law firm. I know that most of you already do this. Now, where you really want to build your competency is high volume, high risk. So strategic partnerships, business advisory, reporting to the board. This is stuff that you need to build your competency within your team. And thankfully, you can now augment that with AI, which means that you can really scale the way that you work and optimize your function so that you're becoming a true business partner to the business. So this is just a framework that you can utilize to start to think about what it is that you're doing and whether they're in the right bucket. Again, this is generic, right? So it doesn't mean that this is right for your business. It could be that you put, for example, IP disputes or M&A support here in your where you would build your own competency, because you do have a high volume of these, and because that's a strategic part of the nature of your business, and that makes absolute sense. But just think about, this is just something to challenge the way that you think about the type of work that you do and which bucket it sits in, and whether you're actually building the right muscle in the right place. Legal front door. So a legal front door is not rocket science, right? But it's the number one thing that whenever I propose, I get the most pushback on. Because lawyers do not want to feel like they're ticketing systems. They don't want to feel like a support function. A ticket makes it feel like a support function, and I get it. Having said that, I still think you should do it, because it will allow you such insight into what you do that if you can package the narrative around why you're rolling it out, and you can sell it to the business as something that's going to enable you to move faster for their benefit, and I appreciate that's an ask, you will unlock such incredible data about where you spend your time. You will create an audit trail of the work that you've done. You will be much better placed to know, if you're managing a team, a legal team, what each lawyer is doing. You will also find out that marketing is sending you the most requests, and actually marketing needs training. So all these insights start to compound. And every time you get a big insight that screams something, you can do something about that. And you slowly optimize your team exactly where it needs to be optimized, because you're looking at the high volume stuff, the stuff that's high friction, and you're thinking not just about reacting to that stuff and getting it done, but you're taking a step back, you're seeing patterns emerging, and you're going, okay, this is where this needs attention. I need to now go and fix that. So there are loads of ways for you to do this. SharePoint, if you're using a CLM, I vibe coded one the other day to see if it was possible. I used Claude. It took me an evening, so you can definitely do it. A ticketing system like Jira. Most of the companies that I used to work for in the tech space did use Jira for this. ServiceNow. But yeah, there are loads of ways for you to do that. Even just a Google form will work, because it will give you insights. But the tool matters less than the design. So I appreciate that rolling this out, particularly across a large organization, is a big project, but you can start small. If there's a way for you to start small with a pilot, and this is going to go into change management, but you will see the impact really quickly. Okay, Knowledge Hub. As I said previously, our product as lawyers is knowledge. That's what we give, that's what we use, that's what we ingest. We're not great at saving it. We're not great at reusing it. We do think that we do need to reinvent the wheel many, many a time. We don't. What I would suggest is that you start to collate all of this knowledge because with the AI that's out there, even general purpose tools, you could start there if your organization allows. You could create a project on ChatGPT and you could start storing all of your policies if your company permits that. Of course, there are security concerns, which is why lots of organizations prefer a legal specific tool, but you could start to store this kind of information somewhere and see how the business behaves if you give them a small set of information and you ask them to query that instead of always asking you who needs to sign this NDA. So if, and also what we're seeing now is that people are connecting their knowledge hubs to their legal intake, to their legal front door. So when someone goes into a chat experience, for example, to ask a question of legal, if the answer to that question is very simple and it exists within a policy, a process document, a guidance note that's saved in your knowledge hub that's hooked to your legal intake team, then you'll see that a lot of the lifting with the admin routine queries gets swallowed up by AI, which is perfect because you get your time back to do stuff that is much more fun than answering questions that you've answered a million times before. That's actually the number one moan I get, the number one complaint I get from lawyers. I'm sick of answering the same question again and again and again. I don't know if it's the same for you, but yeah, let me know in the chat. So from legal knowledge to business enablement, legal knowledge answers questions, lives with legal, and reacts to requests. That's the current scenario. But if you want to move that knowledge into something that delivers on the business enablement promise, that knowledge base will guide decisions, shows up in workflows, and will scale without friction. So you keep control, but the business gains autonomy. And this is key, right? Because you don't want the business to have to wait for you to answer if the answer is already there and it's not high risk for them to take that answer and go forward. My favorite, contract management. So this is where AI thrives, by the way, because AI is so amazing at patterns, recognitions, and taking data that is unstructured, because that's what contracts are, and then pulling out stuff that is structured. I got a stat from someone the other day that said 60%. I then got another stat that said 50%. So I'm going to go with 40 just to be conservative. But that's loads. So if you're spending so much time reviewing routine agreements, surely that's not how you move the needle when it comes to you being a business enabler. I'm not saying routine contracts aren't important. You need to be moving those forward. But if they're taking up such an enormous amount of your time, there must be ways for you to make that go faster. So there are 4 contract optimization levers. So, and I've split them into 2 buckets here. You've got foundational levers. So simplifying your contract, leveraging standards like one NDA, and then scaling levers. So AI contract review, AI contract management. So in the first instance, you need to set your foundations right. And in the second instance, you need to get the tools that are going to make those foundations go as quickly as possible without taking up so much of your resource. So the first thing that I would say is sort your templates out. Because if you have a template that has got this sort of language in it, when you can have this sort of language in it, why? You're sending it over to the other side. They're looking at a contract. Yes, AI might be reviewing a lot of the contract, but this sort of thing is even more dangerous now that AI is in the mix because you're adding unnecessary language and you're adding more room for interpretation. You're inviting red lines. You're doing that also if there's just a human on the other side, because I don't know about you, but I've had contract rage in the past where I get a contract to review and the language is so dense, I have no idea what it says unless I read it 3 times. And that's not good for my brain. That's not good for your relationship. That's not good for deal speed. And that's not good for the business because the business benefits from deals moving quickly. And that is actually a massive commercial advantage that you can provide to your business with a direct and immediate impact on the bottom line. So simplify your contracts, number 1. Secondly, leverage standards. I don't know if you've heard of one NDA, but if you have not, I founded it 5 years ago now, actually. So I can't believe how long it's been. But we pulled together a community of lawyers. We created an NDA standard that then grew. We've created more standards like one SAS, one DPA, one SLA. These standards are used by thousands of legal teams, apologies, across the world. And the leverage that you gain is that if you're contracting on your paper and you send it over to the other side's immediately suspicious. They're going to look at it, right? They're going to look at every line. They're going to make sure that there's nothing untoward in it. And they're going to feel immediately that you're protecting your own interests because you probably are. If you are contracting on neutral paper, that adversarial context disappears. You're both contracting on neutral paper. You're showing them that you're being collaborative. They're probably familiar with one NDA. Even if they're not on it, they are much more likely to sign it than if you say your own NDA. There's a lot of ideology behind an NDA, and I've done a lot of writing on it. So if you're keen to hear more, please head over to the Law Insider website, which is where the one NDA standards live. And there's a lot of writing in there around the benefits of standardization. And I think that particularly in a world of AI, it's important to have those standards and to keep taking them forward. What we've done with Simple AI, which is a tool that I will be talking about in a minute. Simple AI is our contract review assistant, and it lives in Microsoft Word. When you're reviewing a contract, you have an opportunity with Simple AI and with other contract review tools, by the way, it's not just ours. You have the opportunity to use playbooks. Playbooks are a set of rules against which you will review an agreement. And those rules basically set out your preferred positions. We've taken these standards and we've turned them into playbooks. So even if you're a one NDA adopter and you've sent over one NDA to the other side and they don't accept it and they send back their NDA, you can now compare that NDA against the one NDA principles, and you'll often find that they comply, which is like, well, why didn't you just sign up to one NDA then? They did not, but at least you know that you're not going against the one NDA principles. And that's how we bring standardization into third-party agreements as well. Once you've set your foundation up and you've got good contracts and you've got good contract practicing best practices in place, the next step is for you to accelerate the way that you work with AI. Now, as I said earlier, AI is so perfectly positioned for contracts. You can automate your contract review in line with your preferred positions. We're not relying on the AI to tell us what it thinks is best. You're telling it what you want for your organization. You're telling it where your risk thresholds are. You're telling it what you will accept, what your fallback positions are. It's a very sophisticated tool that will allow you to encode your negotiation logic, but you can now augment your review with your AI assistant. We don't just do playbooks, we also have a co-pilot. So if you just want to ask questions, that don't require you to read every single word immediately when the contract lands on your desk, because you want to be more iterative with your review, which is actually a much more human way of ingesting information. You can start by asking broader questions of the contract and then slowly narrowing down. Whereas what we do with contracts, and why the contract review process is the perfect combination of stressful and boring, may I say, because it's boring because you've seen that language before, but you don't know for a fact that it does the thing that you expect it to do. Often you'll read a force majeure clause and you're like, yeah, this is boilerplate. No, it's not. It's got some hidden stuff in there that's unacceptable. So it looks familiar, it feels familiar, but you know that it's not. So you've got to be extra vigilant. You can use an AI co-pilot to flush this out immediately without having to go through this mental this cognitive load of reading everything at once and going into detail immediately. So I find now that I use AI to review contracts, I find it much more intuitive than just jumping into the detail from the outset. And what's unique to Simple AI is that you can leverage market standards and insights to fast track negotiations. So if you're using an AI tool, then it's great if you can check that it's using data that sits outside of this environment, so that you can also get insights as to what's market and what's coming soon. And by the way, I'm not demoing right now. I will be demoing after the end of this webinar. If anyone's got 15 minutes and they want to see Simple AI in action, I will show it. But the purpose of this webinar is not to demo the tool. It is to talk about a framework for optimizing your legal team. But I'll just do a sidebar here. Lawyers get a bad rep for being slow, but we're not, particularly with contract review. You hear the phrase, it's stuck with legal. But the reason we're slow is not because we're slow at reading. We're actually really fast at reading because we do it for a living. We're slow because the information that you need at the point at which you're making a decision as you're reading an agreement is not available to you immediately. When you're reviewing a liability cap that's 3 times the fees paid in the last 12 months, you're like, okay, does this align with my policy? Let me go and check my playbook that's in my Excel spreadsheet or is in my PDF that's somewhere dusty. What's the most that we can accept? I don't know. Second question, have we agreed this before? I don't know. I have to go and check the precedents. Where do I start? And then thirdly, is this market standard or is this completely bizarre? I don't know because this isn't exactly my field because I'm in-house and I'm actually a generalist. Let me call my law firm friend to ask them if this is standard. All that stuff, I don't, I'm not saying you do that stuff every single time you see a liability cap, but that's just an example. It's an illustration of the multitude of decisions that you need to make as a lawyer when you're reviewing an agreement. And what AI can do is surface that data for you so that you are making decisions much more quickly and you're not stalling because you're looking for information. It helps you make judgments much more quickly, and AI is transformative from that perspective. And then, of course, contract management. Now, everyone who's implemented CLM will have some scars, I'm sure of it. Those CLMs were very workflow based. So we did not have the technology when wave 1 and wave 2 of CLM were at play to do the things that we can do now. Now we can build tools that are just much more malleable. You can query your contracts. You can treat your contracts as a body of data that you manipulate in the way that you need. You don't have to do all that heavy lifting up front to tag the metadata and make sure that you're storing the right information. God forbid Max Schrems takes Facebook to court again and we get another a different sort of data protection rule coming into play and we have to go and do a retro on all of our contracts again. Doesn't matter if that happens because now you can use AI to query your contracts and get output that you need. And this is another tool that we have and that we're actively building, and the results of this way of managing your contracts is just so much better than what we had before. This is just a happy customer. Data and reporting. So one thing I'll say is data and reporting, legal teams have a lot of pressure to report, to get data, all of that. Just because you can report on something doesn't mean that you should. Like, you might have access to loads of data because actually you've got loads of digital tools and you can see loads of data, but you don't really know what you should be measuring. So just because you can measure it doesn't mean you should measure it, doesn't mean you should be reporting it. Try and tie your data to the business objectives. What is the business trying to achieve? And how are you demonstrating that you are enabling that objective to be hit? So you need to understand where time and effort is actually spent, look at the patterns in risks, delays, escalations, but just often with data, less is more. So be really deliberate about what you're measuring and who you're giving that data to. And of course, change management is key. I'm going to offer you some further reading here if you're interested. Kotter's 8-step model, I think, is foolproof. It's great. It gives you such a good understanding of how to drive change. I followed this when I delivered one NDA as well, and I think that we did achieve quite a lot of change across the legal industry with that initiative. Change management cannot be an afterthought. It needs to be part of everything that you do from the outset. Just the 8 steps quickly that Kotter recommends. So the first is establish a feeling of urgency for hurriedness towards change. That sounds mega manipulative. Maybe it is. But you need to tell someone why they need to act and why they need to act now. Otherwise, it will go into the tomorrow pile and it won't happen. So create a feeling of urgency. Then develop a strategy to bring about change. What are you going to do? Sorry. Then you formulate a guiding coalition. Sorry, that's the second step. A guiding coalition is get some people together who are going to support you. You can't do this by yourself. Who has a vested interest in what you're doing? And then you develop a strategy to bring about change, and then you communicate or put forth the vision or strategy for the change. Communication skills are key. Who you talk to and what you tell them. is really important, and your message is going to change depending on who you're speaking to. And then you want to empower people to take action, incorporate changes. You want to give them goals. People like goals. People want to know that this is the thing that they're all gunning for and that they want to achieve by this time. And then capitalize on the wins or the gains in order to produce bigger results. So shout about successes, make a big deal about when you hit one of those milestones, and tell everyone how amazingly they did and how they supported that milestone. And then, of course, incorporate new and better changes in the workplace culture. This is what I mean. This eighth step is what I mean with legal by design. So if you're rolling out new things and if you're getting business stakeholders or other people in the business to do things that were traditionally legal, or if you're asking the business to engage with a legal front door, or if you're asking the legal team to use an AI tool, how are you going to drive that change? It's not build it and they'll come. It does require a change management process, but we're good at arguing, so hopefully we shouldn't be too bad at change management. So just to give you a recap, optimizing legal in 2026 requires three shifts. The first is one in identity. The next is in posture. So we want to go from reactive to intentional. And then we need to execute. So it's not just, I'm going to do this project here and I'm going to do this other project here. It's how do all these things connect together? And hopefully the 5+1 framework that I've offered you today is a way to structure that shift. Before I go on to this bit, are there any questions that I should be answering?
Electra, we have a couple of comments pretty recently in the chat that perhaps you might take a look at. Probably starting from
Yes, where am I
Adam onward.
going? Yes. Sorry, which one am I looking at,
Actually, you know what?
Jory?
Can you maybe address a knowledge base and how you might structure that information or organize that information?
Yes, so with the knowledge base, I might do another webinar on it because you need to start to think about how you're going to use it and who your users are going to be. So I would not recommend that you just start pulling all of your policies and all of your processes into a GPT project. I don't recommend you do that. I think that you think about how you're going to test this out. So if, for example, you want to get people asking questions about 5 topics, and those are the 5 topics that you know are taking up a lot of your time, but they're actually low risk. What kind of guidance do you need to give that project? And then how are you going to surface that to other people in the business so that they can query it and get the answers that they need? So it also depends on what tools you're using. You might be using Notion, you might be using Confluence, you might be using SharePoint. Think about your audience. So I did a lot of I'm a big ambassador for what is called legal design, which is a very confusing term. And I think that's why it's not gone mainstream. But basically, the gist is always think about your user, be very user centric. So instead of starting with what information am I going to put into this knowledge base, think about who you're servicing and why, what their needs are. Then go and talk to them. What do you want? How do you want it? How do you want to engage with this tool? Do you feel comfortable asking questions about this topic? And then that will guide you to start to think about what information you need to gather, what tools you need to use, how you're going to surface those tools within the organization, and how you're going to roll them out. Um, do we have any other questions that I should be addressing?
Um, Sorry, there's a few other comments here. One that kind of links up two comments that kind of link together, Adam King and Mukund, around kind of the commentary that might be provided by AI and trust and hallucinations and how how are we working with that?
Yeah, so this is the biggest barrier to AI adoption, trust. And although, if you're doing marketing or operations, you don't need the level of trust that we do in order for us to trust the word trust again, to sort of augment our work with tools. So What I would say is try to use tools that are legal specific because anyone who's designing for legal knows this, right? They know this and they want to ground the output in actual data that you can trust. So, what we're doing specifically, and this is something that I spend most of my time on, is designing how this is going to actually happen. As I said earlier, there are three sort of sources of information that you need to be drawing from when you're reviewing an agreement. And these aren't just going to help you make the output hallucination proof. They're grounding it and they're giving you an audit trail so that you can actually see what the AI's done. I don't think anyone's expecting to fully outsource everything to AI, but what you do want is to gain efficiencies without having a black box, basically. So what we're doing is, and this will be launching in February, what we're doing is we are embedding this capability into the word add-in, whereby when you're reviewing an agreement, you will be able to know whether the provision that you're reviewing aligns with your playbook. We already do that, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is that you'll be able to see whether that provision aligns with what's common in the market. The way we're doing that is through a very deep integration with Law Insider. SimpleDocs acquired Law Insider late last year. And the purpose of that acquisition predominantly was because we saw the value of the data that Law Insider uniquely holds. We are the only tool on the market that has amalgamated contracts over years and years and years. And we don't just have contracts, we're not just Edgar. We took those contracts and we passed them at clause level. So we can tell you at clause level whether the thing that you're looking at aligns with your industry that you're in, the jurisdiction that you're in, and the position that you're reviewing. So the first is, does it align with your policy, your playbook? Second, is this going to cause too much friction because it's completely non-standard for this industry, this jurisdiction, this nature of agreement, this value even? And then thirdly, have I done this before? So what we're going to be able to do is integrate the word add-in with your contract repository, so where you store all your agreements, and we will be able to tell you whether for that supplier you've agreed that before, or for this type of contract you've never agreed this. So this information, these insights are key, right? Because then you're not just leveraging AI to give you an output that sounds plausible. This is a different use case. You're using AI to go and find information for you that would have otherwise taken you a lot of manual work. So we're not asking you to trust the AI. We're asking you to delegate the right things to the AI, which are go and find the thing that's going to take me ages to find and surface it in a way that makes sense and identify the patterns here that I need to be looking at. So I think it's just a different framing with regard to the risk that lots of lawyers see, and rightly so, when it comes to hallucination and trust. Um, so just before we wrap this up, I just want to give you a few words about SimpleDocs. So we are a contract automation company. We have been around Law Insider has been around for over 10 years, and SimpleDocs has been around for 3. As I said earlier, we acquired SimpleDocs, and we're on this journey to deliver the best AI tool out there. There's a lot of thought and a lot of ideology behind our product. I mean, we really understand how lawyers work, and we want to partner with you to help you do these things. When I talk about automating your legal function, it's also important that when you're choosing a tool, you're not just buying a tool, you're buying a partner, particularly in this era of AI. I'm the chief product officer, so I lead up product, and I also lead up the implementation team. I support the teams with implementing the tools that we sell them, because I also understand that lawyers are not legal technologists, and support is a really big focus for us to ensure that whatever it is that you get from us is something that will actually add value to you as quickly as possible. So I'm going to be spending 15 minutes at the end of this demo. So if anyone has time and wants to stick around, please do. For anyone who doesn't have time and you do want to see a demo of the full tool, Dory, can we pop up the poll, please, so that people can tell us if they'd like to schedule a demo? We'd be very happy to show you the tool in all its entirety and all its glory. So please just let us know if you're interested, and we'll be in touch. So yes, as I said, SimpleDocs is an award-winning contract automation provider, and as we come to the top of the hour, I'm going to stay on for another 15 minutes to deliver this overview of the SimpleDocs platform. And so yes, if you do have a hard stop, please feel free to drop off. Otherwise, I see that we've got 10 minutes left. I'm going to try and answer any questions that you might have. Otherwise, I will start after that.
Great. One question, Electra. Can you outline a few ways that perhaps you can track change management activities within your organization?
Track change management's activities. Sorry,
So
can you?
how basically like what are you doing internally to enforce change, and
Yeah.
how are you then communicating that to your organization, what you've done perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, legal feels this pressure to demonstrate as ROI as we keep getting told. I think that, well, it depends on what change you're trying to drive. So if you're trying to deliver a tool within your organization and you want to get the organization to use it, say for example, you've bought Simple AI and now you want to roll it out to your team. So you need to think of the stakeholders that are going to be most impacted. So it's your legal team. Your legal team is going to be using this tool instead of reviewing it manually. So the first thing to do is understand these people. What are they worried about? What are they worried about personally? Are they worried that they're going to become obsolete? Maybe. So you need to address that head on. You need to figure out who it is that you are dealing with. This is a very human thing. It's AI proof because it's superhuman change management, and we need to understand who it is that that we're dealing with, and what it is that they need to feel comfortable about, so that you can get them into a position where they're going to support you with the change. Again, it does depend on what you're doing. If you're, on the other hand, rolling out a legal intake form and now you want to get sales who are used to just pinging you on Slack to go through a form process, you need to figure out what they want in their role and how what you're doing is going to support the things that they want. You might also think about what they fear. And we had some behavioral training from an ex army person who talked about how they got terrorists to collaborate with them. And one of the things that they said was that the thing that really makes people do things are not things that they desire. People always talk about being positive, and when you're talking about change, talk about the positives, talk about the negatives as well. Talk about what happens if they don't do this, how they're going to be left behind, how their results might be impacted. Talk about the negatives too. Don't be afraid of doing that. I think we live in a world where we are afraid of talking about the negatives, and there's this pressure to be positive all the time. But yeah, don't have to do that. You can be really straight up about the consequences. So those are sort of some strategies as to how you might want to get people, corral people around your purpose. Now, when you start to deliver that change, yeah, it does depend on what it is that you're delivering. Yeah. Finalized legal. Love the name. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that Simple Docs is helpful. Yeah, we are really integrating with Law Insider. We think that this data is so key to getting lawyers to get as much value out of AI as possible. Enid, thank you for saying that. And I'm so glad that you love the tools. Simple Docs is a contract review tool. It will not help you evaluate your legal operations. However, if you do buy into Simple Docs, then you get access to a legal engineering team. The legal engineering team is led up by me, and we all have consultancy backgrounds, and we do understand how to scale legal ops. So we will support you with your legal ops journey. Our tools are there to support your legal ops journey. So it kind of goes hand in hand. So just to be really clear, Simple Docs is a contract automation platform. We have two tools. We have Simple AI, which is a word add-in, which I'll be showing in a few minutes. And we also have an AI repository, which is where you can store your agreements. The two integrate, so you can get insights from your repository in the word add-in. So when you're reviewing an agreement, you can tell whether something is aligned with your previous agreements or not. But you can also just use the AI repository without Simple AI to store your agreements, query your agreements, create reports, share those reports with other parts of the organization, etc. And of course, it's fully secure, and we are SOC 2 compliant and GDPR compliant. And we have a full trust page that you can look at if there are any questions around how we handle security and confidentiality. Dory, it seems like some people didn't get the pop-up, so should we pop it up again?
I absolutely can. Yep, give me 1 second here. Let's see if we're
Okay. If anyone wants a demo after this, I can show you the tool, or someone in our team will show you the tool depending on your time zone. We have coverage across the globe. So if you do want a demo, please let us know here. And then in a couple of minutes, I will be starting the demo. As I said, I know that some of you have a hard stop, so feel free to drop off. But if you do want to stay, I'm going to be spending 15 minutes. I'm not going to do a full tour of the tool. I'm going to predominantly be focusing on new features that we've just released and giving you a quick overview of what we can do. If you want to see a full demo after that, then of course you absolutely may. You can book a full demo so that you can see all of the features across our tools and how we can support you with your legal optimization journey.
Electra, I have a very broad question, but perhaps you can indulge us for a minute here. Aside from legal as a support function in corporates, how do you think AI can impact the litigation industry? Should courtrooms be more technology inclusive?
I think they are, aren't they? Or if they're not, they will be. We had a conference in February last year in Miami, which was amazing in February, and there was this professor there, and I'll never forget this. And I always talk about this, and I think this professor's going to think that I'm obsessed with him, which I probably am. He was talking about how in the courts of, I think, Alabama, but I might be wrong. Please correct me if I am. The judges are basically using AI to decipher the true intention of contracts, because of course contracts are nothing but a meeting of the minds. And if there isn't that, then what is there? So judges were using AI to review contracts when there was a contractual dispute to understand what the intention was of the parties, and they were using that as evidence to skew to direct their decision. So I think it is already being used. I think the question that came out of that conversation was, in a world of AI where people are using AI to draft agreements, negotiate agreements, and litigate agreements, do contracts become obsolete? Which is a bit of a mind blow, but yeah, we are moving really fast, and I do think that courts will continue to use AI, and those that don't should.
Great, thank you. I think we're probably ready for you to jump into the demo. If you could start with just a quick overview for anyone who is currently using the Law Insider AI add-in, and just a quick overview of
Sure.
perhaps what those differences might be as well. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for reminding me, Dory. So, anyone who is familiar with Law Insider or a Law Insider customer has probably had access to the Law Insider database. So that means that they were paying for a subscription that allowed them access to the clauses and contracts that we host. Last year, however, we also released the Word add-in. So it's the Law Insider Word add-in, which has now been rebranded to Simple AI. It is the exact same tool as what we have through Simple Docs. However, the difference with the Law Insider version of Simple AI is that it's geared towards smaller teams and solo lawyers. So that means that you take more of an e-commerce route to buying it. So if you're just a small team and you don't need legal engineering support because you're not rolling out across a large organization, then it's probably more suitable for you to get access to a tool that is lower cost but has the same functionality. And you can just buy one license through that. If you buy it through Simple Docs, you're buying it as an enterprise team, which means that you get access to a legal engineering team. We will support you across your implementation. We will help you map out which contracts you want to automate. We will create your playbooks for you. We'll help you test them. We'll help you roll them out. So you get this really robust support that comes with the enterprise version of Simple AI. We also integrate with our repository, which through the Law Insider version of Simple AI we do not, but we integrate with the repository and we can give you insights as discussed before. Nadine, is it possible to use your tools in a company that is working in a Google Workspace environment? Yes, but we only work, so Simple AI only currently works with Microsoft Word. It's on the roadmap to release the same tool for Google Docs, but it's not ready yet. But yes, if you're a Google Workspace, you can totally use it. Lawyers, I think, just use Microsoft Word regardless. So unless you only use Google Docs for contract review and you do not use Microsoft Word, then yes, you can use it. You do use Word. Okay, Nadine, yeah, you can totally use Simple AI. Cool. Dory, is there anything that I missed there when I was talking about the dichotomy? Can you customize playbooks with the one license plan? Dory, can you confirm that, please? I believe that you can, but you have to do that manually, so without legal engineering support.
So all of the subscriptions should come with the Law Insider standard playbooks, and those standard playbooks can be customized. Yes.
It was the case that we didn't allow customization. And the reason we didn't allow customization on the one person plan was because customizing contracts needed support. But now we have made it much more intuitive and we're utilizing AI. And I'm going to show you this in the demo in a minute to help you draft your prompts to get the AI only. Is Simple Docs a CLM only tool or does it include legal ticketing? It will include legal ticketing, and we have a tool called Workflow, which I admit is not the best name because what does it mean? But what Workflow does is we can take any process that you want and we can automate it. That sounds really broad, but Daniel, yes, we can deliver a legal front door. It's not an out of the box product at the moment. It will be. We've designed it. It's on the cards, but we do legal ticketing and a legal front door, and there's also an integration with a knowledge base. So we can do that. It's just not productized in the way that I'd like at the moment, but it's possible.
Great. I think we can probably kick into the demo.
Great. Sorry, you're looking at my notes now. Okay, so this is the Simple AI Word add-in. It lives in Microsoft Word. I'm just going to be demoing this today and just showing you a few new features in particular. If anyone's interested in the AI repository, then Dory's going to pop up another pop-up at the end to get you to give you an opportunity to book a demo. So this is Simple AI. It lives in Microsoft Word, and there are two predominant ways that you can use it. First is to do very surgical things with your document through the AI assistant here, where you can ask it questions, or you can redline or draft or compare documents. And then the second is review, where you can use a playbook that you've either created, that you've used because we have it, that you've borrowed from us, or you just leverage the LLM. So if you don't have a playbook for something, you can use the AI to review the agreement and build a playbook for you on the fly based on this agreement. So one of the most obscure contracts that we have on the Law Insider database is a contract for the sale of salmon. You probably won't have a playbook for that, but you can use general review because it will leverage the LLM and Law Insider to create a playbook that is consistent with the type of agreement that you're reviewing. So with the AI assistant, a couple of things that you can do is that you can say to it, make the IP clause more customer favorable. And what it will do is it will find the IP clause, which I think is clause 7, and it will make the changes in accordance with your prompt. The better your prompt, the better the result that you'll get. This isn't great, this prompt, because I've not told it exactly what I want, but it's done a good job in finding where it's skewed towards the other side. You can either apply your changes one by one, or you can go ahead and apply all of the red lines, and you'll see them popping up here. You can make amendments to the contract like you would normally, manually, if you like. And you can also edit the red line if you're not happy with it before you introduce it into your agreement. The other thing that you can do, and this is where our USP turns up with regard to the Law Insider integration, is that you can say draft a non-solicitation clause. And what will happen is that the tool will look at your agreement and it will firstly mirror your capitalized terms, which is great because often when you're borrowing from other templates or digging up an agreement that you did 3 years ago that you remember was you had a good clause in, you have to retrofit the terminology to fit the agreement that you're reviewing. What it's also doing is it's mimicking the tone of voice. So it's not going overly formal, it's mimicking the tone of voice. And then soon what you'll see here it is a Law Insider index score. So this score is how similar this language is to other clauses in Law Insider's database. Higher percentages indicate closer matches. So when I've in the past used ChatGPT to draft language, I always feel insecure because I'm like, is this totally random? And am I going to put it in the agreement and embarrass myself because the other side knows that this isn't really my area of expertise. Whereas what this does is it benchmarks the language against a data set that is precedent. Soon you will be able to do this in a slightly different way, which we'll be able to show you in 3 weeks. You'll be able to do this with regard to your agreements as well. So you'll be able to highlight a clause and figure out whether that's something that you've agreed to before. And if you really wanted to dig deeper, you can go to see all, and here it will take you to a list of all the agreements from which it's pulled the substance, basically. So this is not just a word search, it's a semantic search. I'm not going to show you compare today, but as I said, if you did want to get a demo, then you totally can. The other thing that you can do is you can build playbooks. So as I mentioned earlier, and this is really what I wanted to show you today, as I mentioned earlier, building playbooks before was slightly more onerous, which is why we didn't offer it as a self-serve option through Law Insider. You now can use it. And the reason you can use it is because it's just much easier to build playbooks. So playbooks, as I said, are a set of rules that tell the AI what to look for in an agreement. We have 55 standard playbooks here. These were all created by our legal engineering team, and there's more coming. So this is a growing engine. We get requests, lots of requests every week for new playbooks that our customers want. So they all live here. What you can do is you can star them, and if you star them, they go and live in your favorites. But you can also have your own custom playbooks. Now, what that means is that you no longer have to build your playbook from scratch. So you can go here and you can say, build a playbook from current document. What this does is it scans the agreement and it takes the principle that underpins each provision and it turns that into a playbook rule. So I'm going to go fast here, but I would recommend you go higher quality if you're doing it for your use. And here what the tool's doing is it's giving you an overview of the strategy that it wants to take. And it's giving you an opportunity to redirect it if you don't think that these things should be prioritized. So also if you think that there are gaps, you can now tell it what to do. When you're happy with the strategy that it's proposing, you generate the playbook and it will not magically, using AI, will create a playbook based on this agreement. So often what I hear is that people will be reviewing, say, an NDA, a third-party NDA, on one screen. On the other screen, they've got their NDA, and they're checking to see if there's inconsistencies. You don't need to do that because it's 2026. You can do this. You can take your NDA, open it up, create a playbook, and then use that playbook to review third-party agreements. Now, before you start using the playbook, you want to QA it. You want to make sure that the quality is where you want it to be. So you'll go into each of these rules and just make sure that you're okay with it. And say auto renewal notice period is operationally safe for customer is the review rule name. If you're like, that's too long, when I'm reviewing a contract, I'm the sort of person that just needs less words, auto renewal. Cool. And then here, ensure that the non-renewal notice period for the 5-year term with 1 year auto renewals is at least 60 days, currently 30 days, if not redline accordingly. You might be like, yes, okay, my template says that. I'm okay with 60. I'm also okay with 30. So I'm going to change that here. I'm going to have, sorry, that's the wrong place. I'm going to have a fallback position and I'm going to put it here. So you can build out your negotiation logic within your playbook. You might be like, actually, I'm fine with 15 days, to be honest. Fine. So you can just build out your negotiation logic. Previously, a couple of weeks ago, you had the opportunity to set out a comment that would appear in the margins if you ran the playbook and the playbook found that there was an inconsistency with this rule. But before, you could only do it with your preferred position. Now you can have a comment for all your fallback positions. Because here, the comment would be, we have to have 60 days. Well, that wouldn't work if you were applying this playbook, this fallback. So here, you can encode a comment that says, this needs to be 30 days. And then when you hit red line, then the comment will appear in the margin. If you don't know how to prompt, don't worry, who does? Then you can just create, say you want to create a rule here, a new rule. You go like that, and you say termination. I do not want termination for convenience, right? Say this is the rule that you've got in your head. You hit this magic wand, improve instructions. This is going to take your intention and turn it into an AI ready rule. I am so excited about this feature because this gives you such autonomy to build out your own playbooks and to be really granular with the things that you need. And this will also train people to understand how this works and to get better at prompting, because this is a skill that we are going to have to develop. And again, you can build out your comment, your fallback. This is guidance notes. So this is the guidance note that you would give to your team, or if it's a reminder for you, like if this is an issue, escalate to Sally. Or the reason we do this is X. This is how you train your more junior lawyers. So I'm just going to show you this. So you save your changes and then you save and run. So when you can save your playbook, you can run your playbook, and then it will tell you where there are inconsistencies between this agreement and this here. Now, what you'll find is that this is probably going to be all compliant because this is the document that we used to create the agreement. But basically, where there are non-compliances, for example, it's giving you suggestions as to how to make the changes. So we've changed it from 3 to 1 years here. So if you go like that, it will just apply the change for you. And that's it. There are many more features that we can dive into, which we won't have time for today. So please do book a demo. I'm just going to show you my last favorite feature, which is this. Sub draft an email to the counterparty explaining the changes we've made and our rationale. So if you had comments explaining your rationale, it would also pull from those comments. But I often will spend more time on comms than I do on actually reviewing the agreement. So this just saves you that time, and this is not going to be perfect. You're going to want to tweak this. You're going to want to change the language. You can either do that by reprompting the tool, or you can copy and paste it into your email and then make the changes manually. Okay, I see a few questions. I'm going to try to address those.
Can simple AI generate pushback comments? I know we
Not
can
yet.
include them, correct? Okay.
Not yet. Not with AI. You can draft them now. You can use this here to give you inspiration, but soon we'll be able to generate, very soon, like next week, you'll be able to generate AI comments as well. Obviously, you have to review them and make sure that you agree with them, but yeah. Is it only usable on MS Word, which is paired with an MS 365 subscription? We're using Google Workspace, but my team has Word. Yes, you can use it. As long as you have Microsoft Word, you can use this. Are your playbooks based on a specific jurisdiction or legal system? We are as generic as possible with the playbooks that we store. So we want to make sure that these apply to as many people as possible. However, what you can do is go into a standard playbook and duplicate it. So if you wanted to edit the playbook, you can do that. And if you wanted to add specific jurisdictional requirements or nuances or restrictions, you can do that within the playbook and then you can save it as your own. So if you go to actions, you can duplicate it and then you can save this as your own playbook. So they are jurisdiction agnostic insofar as possible. Oh, Raphael. Thank you, Prashant. Yes, Raphael and Ophelia, thankfully not present because they would be ruining this presentation. They are my 3-year-old and my 2-year-old who are downstairs with their dad. Thank God for him. Good to see you here. Um, okay, I think that wraps the questions. I hope I've addressed them all. If not, please feel free to drop me a line. And sorry, I'll just try and address this one. Does AI track obligations in contract? Yes, we have an AI repository. So definitely, Ratner, if you're interested in that kind of functionality, please do book a demo for the AI repository. Is it possible for the AI to review the document and ascertain if there are clauses that are non-standard for the type of agreement? Absolutely. That's exactly what we're delivering in February. So stay tuned for that. Okay, I'm going to let everyone go. Thank you all for staying. I really appreciate we've got over 100 people that have stayed to watch this demo. So thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for your energy. I love these sessions and I'm so grateful to all of you for taking the time to be here. Take care.